Okay, everybody, how you guys doing? We are back. We are here. It is lunchtime, and we are back with we were actually experiencing some difficulties just a few minutes ago, so that's why I'm saying we're back. I was having some technical difficulties with the microphone, but we have everything up and running. We've been having some issues here in the U.S. I don't know if you guys are aware of it in Barbados, but yesterday, like half the U.S. was without cell phone service and even some without internet. So anyhow, we are back right now. We're live with Makeda and Betty from Barbados, and we're going to be talking about these issues that they're having there. Okay, which is again not unique to Barbados. We're having it in a lot of different places. But let's go ahead and chat about that, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Did you guys see that? If that happens to you, call me at 305-316-8815 and I will help connect you with people that will fight for you.
Okay, and we are back. We are here. We are live, and we got a lot of information to discuss. And of course, you guys are invited to chat with us. Okay, so go ahead and send in your comments. I see my brother already put one in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and introduce people. Our guest today. We have Betty. Let's see. Let's start with Betty Hunt. Betty, go ahead and introduce yourself to our group. What's your title and your organization? Betty, can you hear me? Uh-oh. Betty? I can't hear you. For some reason, I think you put the microphone in. I don't know. We'll go to Makeda and then we'll come back to you. But check the mic because I think it might be the headphones. That's the only difference from before. Hey, Makeda? Makeda? Betty, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our group.
Okay. Okay. My name is Betty Hunt. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having us on the show. I am the manager at the National Council on Substance Abuse. This is the prevention agency, the government agency charged with doing prevention, drug prevention, education to all sectors of the population. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to an exciting show.
Thank you very much. And Makeda, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself to our group.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Makeda Bourne. I am the Community Program Officer at the National Council on Substance Abuse, responsible for designing and implementing drug prevention programs across Barbados.
All right, perfect. Now let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to find out a little bit about what kind of challenges you guys are getting right now when it comes to to substance. What kind of drugs are you seeing? Or now they don't call them drugs anymore. What kind of opioids and things like that are you seeing hitting the streets in Barbados? Makeda, go ahead.
Sure. What we are seeing main drugs among our population, and the number one choice of drug is alcohol, and that goes across the population and the age group. And alcohol is legal in Barbados. We also see some different forms of tobacco, so the usual cigarettes. We are also seeing a surge of where young people are getting involved in a different form of tobacco, and that is the e-cigarettes. We are also seeing the marijuana as well, and we are hearing reports of young people who are choosing to use pills as well. So, I mean, we have known to see ecstasy and rohypnol, those other types of drugs here in Barbados as well. So those are the type of challenges that we are facing at the moment, and that is the type of drug education information we are trying to get out there.
Now you said alcohol is illegal, or is that illegal under a certain age?
Okay, I missed some of what you said, but I'm assuming that you are asking if alcohol is legal.
Right, because it sounded like that's what you said. You sounded like you said alcohol was illegal. It sounded to me like you were saying alcohol was illegal. Is that what you were saying? Makeda, can you hear me?
If you can hear me, yeah, I can hear you now. You're asking me if alcohol is legal?
Right, because it sounded like you said alcohol was illegal. Were you talking about only for people of a certain age, or are you talking about altogether?
Well, in Barbados, alcohol is one of the legal drugs, but there's an understanding at the moment where persons basically over 21 are the ones who are given the alcohol drinks. The law is being changed as we speak, as it relates to that, so that persons who are to establish a legal drinking age within Barbados. What we have basically speaks to persons buying and drinking on the premises, but not a legal drinking age, and that is something that the government is in the process of changing.
Okay, so you're going to change the drinking age from 21 to what?
Oh no, we don't have a legal drinking age. We don't have
Oh,
a legal
really?
drinking age. As the law is written, it only speaks so that a person cannot go on the premises and drink. So the loophole in the law, it will allow a person to buy and then probably cross the road and drink, and then you can't do anything. So to protect our young persons, we are in the process, and hopefully that will be passed shortly, where we are looking to have a minimum age drinking to protect our young people.
What's the recommended minimum age that they're coming up with?
I believe the recommended age is 18. I pass over to the manager. She will fine tune that answer.
All right, and Ms. Hunt, what is the recommended? What's the recommended age?
Yes, she's right. She's correct. We just sat in some meetings with the relevant ministries, and the discussion was really rich. When you start speaking to the different sectors, you find that we have much more in common than we have that is different, especially when it comes to response to drug abuse. So Makeda is right. We're looking to standardize the age, and it is not only to do with substance abuse, but generally there's a movement locally to standardize what is considered youth in other sectors of the law, so that the response is consistent across sectors.
Okay, so okay, what's driving the the whole initiative for changing the age? Are we seeing more drunk driving accidents? What's it that's driving that?
You asked at the outset some of the challenges. I think one of our challenges is our lack of data collection. We don't have a lot of data. Some years ago, we were able to do an emergency room survey, and that allowed us to see if there was a connection, what percentage of persons presenting for emergency treatment presented as a result of drug use. We haven't had one of those surveys for some time, so it is really impossible to say that one is linked to the other. What we are trying to do now, what we have done is we have introduced measures on the road like the breathalyzer, and we would hope that going forward that that type of info can be collected. But basically, a lot of our information is a mixture of anecdotal, and we also get some data from our treatment centers when we collect information for the Barbados Drug Information Network. Of course, that data is limited because not everybody is in a treatment center and not everybody presents for treatment in the traditional way. So that data is limited. And then we try to buttress that with data that we get from our school surveys. Again, we have not done a survey in secondary schools for some time. We hope to have one going in September, October. We've only just completed a survey in primary schools. And even that was showing that young people have said, our little children have said that they've been exposed to drug use from as early as 7 years. And so we want to, now we've completed the primary school survey, we want to do the secondary. Our primary school age is 9 to 11. Our secondary school age children tend to range from 11, 12 to 16, 17. You may find some at 18 still in secondary school. So we want to be able to capture that data from that sector and then see how that applies to the larger population. So then the next sector up. So collecting data is something that the NCSA has identified as a strategic focus going forward, so that when we speak in this type of forum, that we speak from a place of statistics and we start gradually moving from the anecdotal evidence.
So what about and Makeda mentioned e-cigarettes earlier. What do you guys find what do you find is on the average age or even the youngest age that you're seeing people using those e-cigarettes?
I think when we asked that in our primary school survey, the results were negligible. In the 9 to 11 population, the results were negligible. However, we do have a concern with our e-cigarettes, with our vaping. And one of the projects on our horizon for this year is to do a campaign for use of e-cigarettes, for use of vaping. We find that that is a growing problem among our secondary and our young population, not only in the secondary schools. This is something that Makeda had previously identified in her interactions and her interventions with even those persons in the 16 to 24 age group and older. And as the community officer, so when you go back to her, she will speak some more about this whole issue of e-cigarettes and the misperceptions surrounding that, which is driving the popularity here on island.
Okay, so Makeda, go ahead and explain to me a little bit more about that whole sector and how that works.
Okay, what a lot of persons don't realize is although Barbados, a lot of persons may not have heard about us, we hear a lot about from the States and get a lot of information from the States as well. And our young people are plugged into what is ever happening up there. So unfortunately, although the e-cigarettes were designed as a mechanism to assist persons who are addicted to nicotine or tobacco, as you will know it, unfortunately, the marketing and the presentation of the e-cigarettes as something being harmless has attracted our young persons to it, and therefore the whole thing about using the e-cigarettes to blow clothes and do different tricks have attracted our young persons to this mechanism. So persons now are trying to use it and they're being introduced by other friends, their peers and family members, young persons in their groupings. And what I have found from going out in the community is that what they're doing, they're having what they're calling the tricks party, where they're trying to see who could blow the biggest cloud, or they could do different O's and so forth. You may have heard of that. And out of that, they're thinking that it's harmless because there is something known as the zero nicotine juice, But what persons are not realizing is not all of the juice that persons are vaping are zero nicotine. That is the first thing. They have different strengths that persons can get, because remember the idea behind the vaping was to help to reduce the nicotine strength a person may use to get to zero, and then you use counseling to help that person with the behavior, which is the brain accustomed, putting the hand up there, and that is something the brain accustomed, and that behavior has to be broken and has to be changed. Now, out of that, now in terms of persons introducing the nicotine into their bodies unaware, they're also creating a behavior. In addition to that, using the whole vaping process, research is finally starting to come out that is showing that a person inhaling that intense heat within their lungs is affecting the bronchus and the alveolus, the whole makeup of the lung and their respiratory system. So it is something that is harmful. It's something that we need to get the information out there quickly and let young persons know that though it may seem like something is fun, that it is causing harm to their body as well as the environment.
So, question for you then: the what's the cost of an e-cigarette? Because I know, like here, for example, you see a lot of people with the e-cigarettes and everything, but it's pretty pricey. It's not like like you're gonna go and buy an e-cigarette for $1 or anything like that. So it's not that it's accessible to everyone. What's the cost of an e-cigarette in Barbados?
At this stage, I can't remember the price, but I know that they had them very based on if one, they had the disposable and the reusable ones. So I know the price range were differing based on that. And then there's so much introduction of so many different types of brands as well. So I mean, the prices was just ranging so wide and far depending on what the person choose to use. But I must note that it is illegal in Barbados according to our laws that for a person to use, a young person under 18 to use any form of tobacco products, and it has been amended in 2016 to include the e-cigarettes and the vaping, anything dealing with vaping.
Okay, okay, the e-cigarette and the vaping is one thing, but what about, let's say, for example, the marijuana usage, where actually people can grow it in their backyard? I see I think we kind of neglected Miss Hunt there for a little bit, so let me bring her back. What do you think about that? Where people could grow, the marijuana in their backyard or whatever? How are you able to control that?
Well, the short answer is that we're not. Growing marijuana, for whatever reason, is still illegal in Barbados. Quite recently, we have passed legislation which makes it okay to have marijuana used for medicinal purposes. The framework is now being set up for the whole industry around marijuana under very strictly controlled conditions. What we do is that we work closely with the Royal Barbados Police Force for statistics to feed into the Barbados Drug Information Network. And so a lot of that data is showing that persons are arrested for possession of the drug. What we find, and I think what the movement is here, I think the feeling is that persons should be allowed to grow marijuana. Of course, that comes with its own set of issues that I think that government is carefully thinking through. I think where we are right now is the medical marijuana and trying to deal with all the other things that surround the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. It has also been permitted for sacramental use among the Rastafarian population. They too have had some concerns expressed in the media, but I think the move forward is to just do it by phases instead of doing everything at one time, which works well for a small island like Barbados. So we're now looking to see all the intricacies surrounding the medical marijuana use, and then I think we'll go from there.
I mean, and I don't smoke marijuana, I'll tell you right off the bat, but there's always a but, okay? My thing is, I have never seen a dread with cataracts. I've never seen, I don't see a dread with the issues that so I'm like, they must be doing something right. I don't know if it's the idle food or if it's the weed, but I'm just saying you don't see dread with the same problems that you see everybody else with. So the dread must be doing something right. I'm just saying.
I think this is I think this is an international conversation that has been going on. Proponents for recreational use of marijuana all say that among the continuum of substances, marijuana seems to be less harmful than, say, alcohol and so. But I do think that what we need to look at is the context in which we look at the whole response to substance use and abuse. What may obtain for Barbados may not obtain for even one of our sister islands. And so we need to look at not only the issue of the substance itself, but what is the framework? What are the institutional frameworks surrounding the issue? How can we respond? How can we put things in place to assist somebody who may develop problematic use of a particular substance? Because you can develop problematic use of the same marijuana in the same way you can develop problematic use of alcohol and so on. And so we have to examine the resources, what we have available, what we don't have available, how it will impact on other sectors. And I think that is the conversation that we are having now. We may be late to the table, but it's the conversation that we're having now given our resources. We're also having this conversation about marijuana use versus other substance use against the background of the CARICOM Commission on Marijuana Use. All the countries of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, which form CARICOM, they had commissioned a study, and so they went from country to get some feedback on this whole issue of marijuana use. And so from country to country, even though we're in the same geographical region, the realities are different as close as we are. And so I think each country is responding based on its resources. I would not dismiss what you just said because it is something that we have to look at going forward in the same way that we have to look at all the other substances. So it is something that is evolving as we set out what works best for Barbados.
Let me ask you a question, and this could go to either one of you. Either one of you could answer. Do you think that the issue is related to money? Is that one of the things? Because like here in the United States, for example, marijuana was illegal. We had all these problems, yada, yada, yada. And then when the state started to make money from it, then it was like, oh, wait a second. Let's pass the law. And all of a sudden, marijuana is good in Colorado and California and a couple other states where the states are making a lot of money. Not to mention, they make a lot of money also off of the arrest of people. So, I mean, do you find that and I don't know what it is in Barbados. I'm just throwing this out there based on the things that we're seeing here in the U.S. But do you find that that it could be related to funding? Either one.
No, I lost the first part. So I thought I was waiting to see if Makeda had heard because I had lost the first part of what you said.
Well, what I was saying is people are always saying, this fight against marijuana, is it related to funding? Because here in the U.S., it was a big problem, and then all of a sudden, when the states started to legalize it, and they realized that they can make more money legalizing it than actually putting people in jail for it, then all of a sudden it became legal. Because like here in Florida, for example, you can go and get a marijuana card. You can get a medical card, which allows you to have marijuana. I should say, I don't want to call it a marijuana card. But you can have that card and you can walk into a dispensary and buy marijuana and things like that. And if you get stopped by the police, then, you have it with you. But it seems like a lot of things are funded, but a lot of the decisions are made according to the funding that follows it. Do you find that that's an issue there in Barbados, or is that something that was brought up?
Okay, I'm not sure if the manager heard you, but you hear me? That
Yeah, go ahead.
a lot of persons bring a number of arguments as it relates to the legalization of marijuana, and I cannot speak to what government may be thinking. But what I can do is try to lay out some of the facts in terms of what people have to consider when looking to look at any drug, including marijuana. And most of the time, people talk about finances and may see that a person may be selling marijuana and they're ready to get money. But then you have to look at the holistic impact. So for instance, you may have that happening, but for instance, in the states, if we were following it, a lot of farmers went bankrupt because they thought that with the whole marijuana boom, they put aside the usual growth of crops in the hope that they could have plant marijuana and reap. And that did not happen because of the high cost of taxes, and persons after were refusing to buy from the sources or the farms, as you know them, that has the license to grow. That is something that person have to look at in terms of that. And then they had a issue that has been reported a lot in terms of a lot of underground things, sales, and a lot of underground growing. That is something that we have to be cautious of happening, right? And then in addition to that, you have to look at the health impact when person chooses to use marijuana, especially on our under 24 population. Research have shown over the years extensively that when person chooses to use marijuana and they're smoking it, it does have an impact on the brain, and it is scientifically shown. um, Years after years, research have concluded the same thing, and that is the type of impact it's having on the brain as well as the body of person who choose to smoke the marijuana. The type of impact it's having on the brain, the body, the lungs, etc. So you have to be a little more holistic when we are thinking about the decisions and the impact, because you might be getting money here. Think of your home budget. If we can simplify it just a bit, think about your home budget. You may be getting $100 coming into the home and you think you make a profit, but then if you have to spend money on the doctor because you know what, your health is impacted from trying to get that money. If you have to take money, another set of say $20 for the doctor, you have to take $20 then, and you have to pay some type of fee. You have to take another $20 and you have to pay out for child protection, or be children who were exposed to the marijuana and some kind of child protection fee or something like that. At the end of the day, my question is, have you really made a profit from the sale of that marijuana that you receive? And to me, when I really start to break it down and look at it, we have to be careful in terms of ready to run off with the whole argument that it needs to be um, legal because of a financial matter. We have to look at it in terms of all of the different frameworks, basically.
Okay, but using that same argument, if that's the case, there's a lot of things that are legal. And again, I'm not just saying Barbados, I'm saying here in the US and different places too. There are a lot of things that are legal that are really not good for you. McDonald's, alcohol, cigarettes. These things are not good for you. And I mean, if you take, let's say, for example, alcohol, and you compare, and again, I don't smoke marijuana, I don't smoke it, but I'm playing devil's advocate here. Okay. So if you take alcohol and you take marijuana, I've seen people high and I've seen people drunk. And trust me, there's no comparison. The guy that's high never, he doesn't go and start a big fight or there's so many different things that you do when you're on alcohol that you don't do when you're high. So I'm just playing devil's advocate, but I think that there's a lot, and people always use the example of your health and the developing brain. But when we look at McDonald's food damaged a developing brain, and yet we give it to kids almost every day. We give all that fast food and the fake food because it's not real food. McDonald's meat isn't real meat. I used to work at McDonald's, and that thing comes like a cardboard. It doesn't. It's not like real beef or anything that you could say, oh, they defrosted. That thing looked like cardboard until you put it on the grill, and then all of a sudden it looks like meat. So I mean, so we're giving our children with the developing brain a lot of these things that we say is okay, and we give it to them, willingly. And so using that same thing, why aren't we going to? Do you have McDonald's? I remember a couple of years ago well, not a couple years ago, this
No,
is
we don't.
25, 30 years ago, that they didn't want a McDonald's in
Yeah,
Barbados.
yeah,
But there is a
yeah.
McDonald's there, right? But it was for that
Um,
reason that they didn't want the
we
years ago.
we had
I believe
we
Oinaka was the prime minister then, that when they didn't want McDonald's in Barbados because of the food, because the food isn't real food, you know. But I can't, I didn't remember if it got passed or not. But yeah, so let me hear your response to that one. Makeda.
I can hear you now.
No, I was saying, let me hear your response to that, because I was wondering what about that? I mean, we're
Okay.
giving our children a lot of things that are just as bad as drugs. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are controlled substances in a lot of these foods. A lot of them have high sugar, high salt, and they're not controlled substances, but they should be. So why? And I'm again playing devil's advocate. Why is it okay to damage the child over here, but then we say that something that actually has been proven to be a medical benefit is bad? Do you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, I for some reason I missed some of what you said. I'm not sure if my manager caught that he can respond.
But no, can you hear me now?
I am not.
Yes, I can.
I can hear
Okay.
you now just asking that, but I think I think I heard you ask why basically would we treat marijuana differently based on the impacts it's having. Other substances can be having even something as like food. I think that is a relevant statement, but I am happy to say that the movement, just like the global movement, what we are doing now is we are trying to look at everything within a public health perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So even down to our fast food now, I think the powers that be, they're trying to move us from looking at a substance out of the criminal, like marijuana, out of the criminal justice system and treating to it in the public health domain. You made the point, you asked the question, why would we go on the same path we have gone with marijuana when it results in so many young people being criminalized, and that can impact long term? I think the move is away from that locally, so that when we speak to substances now and substance use, we tend to speak on the impact, the overall impact on health. What we have done in recognizing, yes, there needs to be another way, a different paradigm of looking at this whole business of marijuana for personal use, say, is that here we too have created a drug treatment court. And so those young persons who are have found themselves in the criminal justice system because of small amounts of marijuana use, they're treated differently. They're given an option, completely drug treatment court. And once you can do that successfully, then no record is attached. But as we said before, we're way behind, but we're on the cuffs locally. So all of this will have to factor into decisions that are made at our policy levels. All of this we have to recognize. I think the time has come when all the different sides of the argument have to be put on the table and have to be approached frankly and without emotion. You're right. People do get sick from eating a lot of fast foods and from different things. And we have to have a measured response in the same way. And when these things are put on the table, instead of hushing them down, just look to see where the impacts are. Yes, it may look like, and it has proven to be a quick money earner. But I always say, when you compare Barbados and Colorado, any states, it's apples and oranges. The sort of institutional supports that exist there, they simply don't exist here. For instance, we are now, when I say we, the National Council on Substance Abuse, will shortly do a survey to find out why it is that we know women use substances. We know that women have challenges, but we do not see the numbers presented at treatment. Why is that? What are the barriers to treatment for women? We know if women go into treatment, it impacts on the household, younger children, different areas. It is different than if a man is incarcerated, if a man has to go away for treatment. So those are the things that we're looking at. And it's the same thing as if a woman is hospitalized, say for diabetes for a long while, the impacts are different. So we're even looking to see how gender plays a role in this whole business of our response to substance use. So yes, there's that argument to be had. But again, I go back to, we have to do, and this applies to each country, you have to do, your response has to match the resources for the response. And I think that is where the discussion is now locally. I don't think anything has been taken off the table.
No, and I'm glad too you brought up like the way that things are done in Colorado as opposed to in Barbados, which is true. There's a different demographic, and but if we look at it in the United States, people are punished differently for marijuana, for different things according to who they are and what they look like. We'll be for real. Our justice system here in the United States, a white guy is punished much less severely than a black guy with the same crime. Like, I'll take Miami Beach, for example. On Miami Beach, a white guy might be given a ticket if he has marijuana. A black guy is going to jail. That's a big difference. That's right down there on Miami Beach, on South Beach. So if any of you guys are going to South Beach, don't bring your weed, you might go to jail. You know, you know what they say in Florida, you come on vacation, you leave on probation. But
you see, yeah, the whole world has seen, and people perhaps who would have seen it, I think a lot of people now are coming to the understanding of what is underlying what we are seeing now in the States. I mean, it can be argued that generally across the spectrum, that there's a perception, and it may be some people's reality, that perception of poverty plays a role in how you are responding to, and that is across the road. This whole business of poverty and powerlessness. And I think that feeds into the response to substance abuse, as it feeds into the response on who gets to access higher education, who gets to access a medical treatment, and so on. So you're absolutely right. There is a perception from jurisdiction to jurisdiction that fairness has gone out of the system, that you will be treated differently because of X, your gender, your race, where you stand on the social strata. So it is something that you have to have a deeper conversation about. I think for too long, a lot of the responses are just that, responses. But I think going forward, if we want to do something in a meaningful way, we have to be bold enough to tear off the layers, go through the layers, peel back the layers, layer by layer, and see how we can address the root causes of some of the issues that we're seeing right now. But you're right, what is happening in the States now has caused everybody, I think, just to step back, to do some introspection, and to see, what really presents itself was not the real issue. It was something that was underlying at a much, much deeper place. And I think perhaps that is what needs to be addressed. We ourselves here, we have joined the movement. There has been some support for it. But even again, if we listen to our call-in shows and say, the perception is that things are not fair. The approach is not fair. And so we need to build in an approach which appeases, or which seems to respond equally to all sectors of the population, especially when it comes to who is criminalized or not for this whole business around substance abuse. Makeda?
No. Now, question for you guys, and again, you know how I am. I just call it as it is. A person from Millennium Heights is going to be treated different than a person from, let's say, Market Hill or one of the other places. My family's from Market Hill. I'm from Market Hill, so I use that example. But they're going to be treated differently because they have money, because of who they are, because of different things. So really? That's one of the things too. So when you come to the drug court, are we going to see that it's going to be fairly?
I'm not hearing you now,
Can you hear me, Makeda? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
I wasn't hearing.
I can hear you now.
I'm hearing you now, but as you were going on, right, I heard some areas mentioned: Millennium Heights, Market Hill.
Right.
You
So
were
what I was
saying,
saying
I didn't hear.
what I was saying is if the person is from one area, they're going to be treated differently than the person from a different area. And so how is it that because and again, you can do a survey, you can go to people in different areas and ask them, and they are definitely treated different by the police and by the court. If a person goes to if the police roll up on some guys smoking, they might take them to jail. Where they roll up on other guys, they might give them a warning or might not say anything at all. And then when they go to court, the magistrate, same thing. Magistrate might say, "Oh well, his father is the CEO or the general manager of Simpson Motors, and his father is a guy that cut sugarcane, and then they're treated differently." So how do we now make that? How do we make sure that these things are being done across the board fairly, or is there a way to make sure that that's being done fairly?
Mm-hmm. It's just as I was just thinking how ironic it is that we started speaking about this whole business of substance use and abuse, and see how it has spread to touch even the very fabric of the society. Right. You asked how we can change it. I think we need somebody who's bold, somebody who's willing. You are right, because I remember growing up, we used to hear of Pine Perry Prison. So if you come from Pine, you go before a magistrate called Perry, it was certainly prison. And as people know, that area is one of the most depressed areas in Barbados in terms of its social development. And so, I mean, it has produced scholars like any other place. But I think this whole business of change starts with political will, not political lip service, political will. Once the will is there, then there is the motivation to look at legislation, because I find legislation, we tend to, as a largely conservative society, fall back on what is written. So then we have to examine legislation. And then we have to engage persons in a way that they know what these changes mean. Because it is okay to say, this is my right, this is my right, this is my right. But what are you bringing to the table as an individual? What are your responsibilities in this whole business of change and managing change as we go forward? Nobody wants to be stigmatized based on color, class, race, creed. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants children to be denied an education because a parent has gone to prison, because a parent is using drugs, because the area where the person lives, nobody wants to be denied a job opportunity because of that. But it is a long, long, long process. And society like ours that is not as multicultural as the one you are living in now, the change is going to be that much more difficult because we're accustomed to a place for everything. And I think that is what is going to be difficult to change, the comfort level of individuals who may feel entitled, and also letting persons know that, okay, let's use the whole issue of marijuana for recreational use. If we get to the stage where a policy, the government enacts laws that says marijuana is okay for recreational use up to a certain amount, it certainly doesn't mean that that is all you can do with your day. There is something, what is your responsibility? Does it mean that you will give it to a minor? Does it mean that, and say that this is within the context of your family? What are you doing? So along with agitating for change at the policy level, I think we agencies like ours need to be doing some education. When this change happens, how will I manage it? How will I go forward? And I think that is perhaps what is critical and what is missing, because once the bill is there to change the legislation, that's fine. But then we have to live the legislation, and we can only do that by preparing people for change across the board. And once you change it in one area of the social sector, it will redound all down. It's like dominoes, and you change and you change and you change. So we have to be real about this. I think for too long we've paid lip service to it. I think we have to put some more money and some more passion behind this whole issue of prevention of substance abuse. However, we see substance abuse, we have to put, because it is not only the substance abuse, I always argue, is not the cause. We're just seeing what is the result. So we have to dig a little deeper. And I think a lot of that plays out when the frontline personnel like Makeda, when they go into the field, it is something completely different. We can have all the policies in place and so, but what people are struggling with is a practical day-to-day existence. And a lot of females would say this: I know it is wrong, but if I have a son who's 12, 13, and can perhaps be at the end of the street to alert me when police are coming through, and that person can be paid by a drug dealer $60 a night, what support are you offering that person to get the child off the street? It is those practical things that we have to concern ourselves about.
Okay, sounds like we should be like you should be running for prime minister or something. That was a good speech. I like that. I'll tell you. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Uh-oh. Looks like my audio is gone again. I don't know. Can you hear me now?
I think I've lost you again.
I'm not sure why you my audio level is showing that I'm good. I don't know why. Can you hear me, Makeda? Huh. I don't know why it's showing.
No, we're losing. I'm not sure. Makeda, are you hearing? Because I am not hearing.
Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me? I don't know. I don't know why. All right, but we're gonna have to run anyway. But that was a good one. I really appreciate that. I don't know why you can't hear me. I'll send you a message on here. Hold on just a moment. Yeah, people are telling me they can hear me. I don't understand why.
I'm hearing you now, but you're actually coming in and falling out, I'm not sure if Makeda is hearing you.
Can you guys hear me?
I'm hearing you now.
No, I was saying that sounds like you should be running for prime minister, because that was a really good speech. I like that. You hit a lot of key points and you did it down. That was great. You know what I mean? Men need to look out. Somebody's coming for their job. I'm just saying. Madam Prime Minister.
No, yeah, you know, but a lot of the times we have to be careful that our policies don't run too far ahead of what is happening on the ground. And that is easy to do sometimes, you know, with all good intentions. We apply the same concept at the programming level. We may hear, and you ask at the outset of the program, what statistics how do you know this is happening? We may think that we are programming for one issue, and then when we get out on the ground, program officers come back and say, this is not what is really happening at all. And so I go back again to the value of doing our own local research, so that when we do our programming responds to a real need. And also what we have started to do is to see how we can foster some interagency collaboration. A lot of times people who find themselves marginalized do exactly that, find themselves marginalized because of a lack of access to. And so sometimes we have to create a way where if they have to access social services, they're not treated as if, you know, they're begging. It is just a place that they have found themselves. It is a place that I always say there, but for the grace of God. So we have to get people off, help them through to eventually get them out of the system, rather than keeping them dependent on the system. There are those that will probably need that assistance for a longer time, but it makes little sense, say, we're dealing with substance use, so let me put this in that context. To have 3-4 children in a family where the adults, the parents are using substances and they're going to school every day and our message is do not use, do not use, do not use. But at the end of the day, they're going back into that environment and that is their home. what else are you offering these parents? It is okay to say to children, you know, that this may be wrong or using this way or this is wrong, but then you have to provide support for the adults in that family. It may be that the drug use is a way to keep their minds off whatever. We've heard that quite a bit in counseling, that that is a response to deal with stress and so on. So what else are we providing? Because if I go to access a service and I'm made to feel less than a person, I'm not going back. I'm going to go where I can find support. That we have heard and we know that that is the genesis of the boys on the block kind of thing. The girls who hang out there, because that is where they find the support, whether it is ill-advised or not. So I think we need to start asking ourselves hard questions and starting to move in that direction and see if we can bring along or help to influence changes in legislation, which will force people, because sometimes you have to force people in much the same way that we're seeing legislative changes taking place now in the states as a response to whoever would have thought that you have to legislate that if you're next to somebody who clearly needs help, that you have to offer help. You're mandated to offer help. That should be something that comes from a person. That should be a humanitarian thing. That something like that ought not to have been legislated. And so we have to move in that direction. See what it is that makes a person human. Try to provide those services without the person having to debase themselves and lose their dignity, because wherever you find yourself, you still want to maintain your dignity. That's the essence of who we all are. And so that is what we try to do with our programming and with persons who come to us for help. If Makeda goes out, and I'm sure she will tell you, and there's somebody out there who she identifies for help, we don't ask who, what, where. The first thing is to get the kind of assistance to that person. Make the person ready then to receive the help that we have to offer.
Makeda, can you hear us now?
I'm not sure if Makeda is
I'm
hearing
hearing you
you,
a little.
and I think you've dropped out now as well.
All right, I'm not sure what happened. I think we were having a lot of issues here yesterday in the U.S., and I don't think a lot of it resolved, because I know a lot of the
Okay.
I'll send you guys a message later on, because we were having issues. Can you hear me now or no?
Makeda, I'm not hearing.
All right. But I do agree with you on the services that need to be put into the community. I agree. I sit on a few boards. I don't know if you guys can hear me now or not, but the viewers can hear me. They were saying they can hear me.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. Now,
Yes, I can. I'm not sure if Makeda is hearing, but I can.
I sit on a few boards here, and one of them that I sit on, I'm actually the president of the board of trustees for a school called AMI Kids of Greater Fort Lauderdale. And this school is for kids that got out of juvenile detention center, out of jail, and before they can transition back into their regular school, they come to this school. And so I'm on the board of trustees there, and one of the things that we do is we provide the services for the community. And and when I say that, I mean things like if their mother or father is out of work, we're going to try to help them. If they need food, we're going to try to help them. All these different things, we try to help them, because the child is more than just who you see during those hours. So we make sure that we do all these different things, because that might be why that child is, like you said, on that street corner getting $60 a night, because mommy doesn't have a job or daddy doesn't have a job. So he's subsidizing that income. So if we want to tell him stop doing that, we need to find a job for mommy and daddy, and help them find a job, so that this way the child doesn't have to go out and do that. Because when it comes down to it, you're going to go home and eat. These kids need to eat as well. And so that's what we need to do. We make sure, and when we can't find a job, we still help them with different things. Like we got food from the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are supplying lunch to most of these children and their family. So when they drop off to the children and to their family, we're not giving just to the one kid. We're giving to everyone. So if you have 10 people in your house, everybody eats lunch. So that's how we do. We got the community partners. But I was saying earlier, we were having a lot of issues here yesterday and last night with internet service with cell phone service, everything. Half of the United States didn't have cell phone yesterday. So we're still experiencing some of those issues. So I think that's why you're not hearing me that well. Can you guys hear
Yeah,
me?
because I'm trying to follow. I'm trying to follow, but you keep dropping out and going in. But I'm trying to follow about the program you said, and I gather that you said this is a program that responds to children in need or families in need, and you've partnered with an organization to make sure they all have something to eat.
Yes, yes, we do.
Okay.
But I'll give you guys a call and we'll talk.
And I think that's a great way. That is one of the positives that I.
No, I'm saying I'm gonna give you a call and we'll talk a little bit about this on WhatsApp, and I'll explain to you what's going on. Okay. I'll call you guys.
Okay, well, you completely, if you can hear me, you completely dropped out. We are not hearing. I'm not hearing.
All right.
Okay. All right.
All right. So if you guys can hear me, we'll go ahead and have you guys back on the show another time, and we'll make sure that to get this to get all the once all these issues are taken care of, we'll have you back on the show. Okay.
Yes, we would be delighted to be back again.
All right. Perfect. All right, guys, I apologize about that. I don't know exactly what the issue is, what's going on, but like I was saying, we've had issues in the all day yesterday where we were most of the United States, like half the country, was out of cell phone service, and it was Verizon, T-Mobile, Metro PCS. I mean, like a whole bunch of them completely down. Even some of the internet services were having issues. Xfinity, which is who I have, most of you might know it as Comcast, they were having issues as well. So I think that might be one of the issues that I'm still having, where we're having these connectivity issues. So I apologize. I apologize to Makeda, and I apologize to Betty. So we're gonna get them back on the show another time when we can have a good conversation and we can talk about everything that's going on. All right, you know how it is. Technology is not always perfect. You know, this is what happens when we rely too much on technology, though. Because last night when the phone, well, yesterday and last night when the phones were out, people were going crazy. They didn't know what to do. I'm hoping you guys can still hear me, but as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and do a random act of kindness for a stranger. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Whoa, did you guys see that? If that happens to you, call me at 305-316-8815 and I will help connect you with people that will fight for you.